My good sis Mari.
Oh my God, my good sis Mel.
It's actually you. I'm kind of shook, because obviously we passed the 10 episodes mark.
Crazy.
And that was monumentous in itself. But then I think today especially is just even more of a what is happening, because we're actually on the same couch, not on a screen. I'm not, away. I took all the precautions that I needed to, trust and believe.
We know this is still a pandemic. We take this seriously. We do not play.
Facts, we do not play. But yeah, thanks first of all for hosting us in your wonderful, so homely home.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure to be here for the last 20 hours?
Something like that.
20 hours. Yeah, something along those lines. But yeah, so this is our first in-person live
thing.
And
I am listening to us talk, and I am so much more nervous than I think I've ever been to shoot an episode with you, because I can physically see you
literally
as a person.
Yeah.
And for all of our viewers who didn't realize, Mel and I came together from being in WCAPS UK.
Yep.
And because of the pandemic, we've never met in person. And you guys have been getting us live and direct and authentic. And this is the first time we get to be authentic with each other in the same space. So this is really a moment, and we are cherishing it. And we're so happy we get to share it with all of you.
Yes.
But I think we got to get down to the nitty gritty of, oh my goodness, how in 2 weeks has there still been so much happening?
Well, that, and it's I don't think we could have timed our first time meeting at a more pivotal moment of the year.
Yeah.
Which is that in about 1 week's time.
8 days currently, us filming on Tuesday. It will be less when you guys all see this.
Yeah, exactly. There's an election that's happening extremely soon, and there's been too much that's been happening on the outskirts of everything, which is going to influence that.
You just hit the nail on the head. It was a moment where we looked at each other and we were like, how are you doing? And we asked everybody that question at the beginning of every episode. And this was the first time I was like, I probably need to be sitting next to you to say, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And to get this thing kicked off, 11 episodes in, and I'm going to say the same thing I say every single episode. We are still looking for justice for Breonna Taylor. If it got quiet and you think we forgot, we didn't forget. No. We know that we're never going to get her life back, but we are going to continue to say her name and the names of others who have been brutalized and murdered or traumatized by this police state violence. And we're starting there because it is Tuesday, October 27th.
Yep.
And on Monday, October 26th, the Philadelphia Police Department shot and killed Walter Wallace Jr. in front of his mother on the streets of West Philly. We have on this show talked about George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Jacob Blake, all in the span of 10 episodes.
Yeah.
And there was a piece of me that was hoping and praying that we would make it through this election season, or make it through the end of this first season without me having to say somebody else's name.
Another name, yep.
And yesterday, we saw again that racism and fear, especially of Black male bodies, is still incredibly prevalent and deeply entrenched in the systems of U.S. society, specifically law enforcement.
Yeah. What was his? Because I think it's kind of, I saw the news this morning, and as per, it's honestly sucks to say that, but as per usual, whenever those things happen, I tend to not watch any sort of videos.
Of course.
Because we've spoken about this before, it's traumatic to have to see over and over and over again people that look like you, people that are your age, people that have the same interests as you, people that could be you, taken so quickly and so violently. Yep. And I was just, I feel like you might have some more information about just who he was and what happened, and because what prompts I mean, obviously Jacob Blake, clearly there's no shame because Jacob Blake was shot in front of his children. But yeah, at what point does this happen in front of like someone's own mother, you know? Like
Yeah.
parents always say like you never want to see your child go before you, but like that is a horrible way to see him go. And yeah, like do you have more info?
Well, it feels like things are still very much unfolding in real time. We're only, like you said, probably sub 24 hours removed from the news breaking. But what I'm seeing on reports right now, you know, when I was reading CNN and other news outlets, was there was a call for a man wielding a knife in the streets. Originally, it sounded like his family had tried to reach out to get EMS because he may or may not have been, you know, mentally unwell and might have been having some type of things going on there, but that hasn't been confirmed. But that's one of the stories that we've heard. Either way, there was a call saying there was a man wielding a knife. He was in the streets. He had not harmed anyone. He was not coming at anyone or anything like that. There were multiple police officers in the scene. And instead of de-escalating the situation,
Right.
they shot to kill.
Yeah.
And I, like Melina, do not like watching videos of Black people being killed on screen because the trauma porn of everybody consuming Black death and us normalizing it is not something that I want to do. But this morning I was reading Twitter and I was looking at the news, and the reoccurring theme from people was, listening to his mother cry is such a sound that you can't even get it out of your head.
Yeah.
And I was watching a CNN report, and the CNN report happened to cut to the video while I was watching it. And I don't know how many shots in particular, but you hear 7 to 12 shots get off. You can hear his mother crying. You could, and all I can think is that Black people in the Black Lives Matter movement, all they've asked for was humanity.
Yeah.
All they asked for was to see them, to acknowledge us, to realize that our existence is not something to be feared. And you didn't even have the basic decency or the humanity to not gun someone down in the street like a dog.
Yeah. Yeah. That's literally that. Like, I don't understand. Anyone wielding a knife is a threat to, obviously, like, their surroundings, but also to themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I think at that point it becomes, like, not even necessarily what do you consider the biggest threat, but if you don't even see the point of view that it's also, like, a threat to self, because you don't consider that self to be worth saving, then, like, yeah, the answer is very simple. Wielding a knife, gotta go. You know what I mean?
And that's just a crazy thought. And if you've been with us on this journey for a long time, you've heard us say it multiple times. We've called for the defunding and the reformation and sometimes abolition of police systems, because police systems are inherently flawed. We've said it on multiple occasions. They're built on racist practices, whatever. But the biggest takeaway that I take from this case in particular is the police's inability to respond to basic daily needs. The police cannot be a catch-all for all problems in every day.
Yeah.
And this, honestly, is a manifestation of what happens when we use the police for a catch-all for anything.
Yeah. It's honestly like that comic that, like, by comic, I mean, like, comic strip, right? Because French.
It's hard.
I don't speak English. But, like, it literally is the thing of, like, you see this, like, photo of, like, a policeman, and he's got, like, 1,000,001 boulders, and then someone's like, what do you mean defund? Like, he needs more help. And it's like, yeah, by defund, the point is to reallocate funds so that this person's load is actually not that big. Like, again, I can understand why you have, I can't remember who it was, unfortunately, but oh my gosh, was it Philando Castillo when with his wife and his girlfriend and their child
in the car reaching and then registered NRA member reaching for a gun. That sounds like
and then the cop was there, like, freaking out and cussing and everything, and then it was the girlfriend that was super calm.
Yep.
And I think it's like, obviously a lot of people were saying like, how are you the one that's freaking out when you're the one holding the weapon? But I think that comes exactly from that. They know that they're, what's the word? They swear to serve and to take on the duty to be protectors of the community. But that means literally then like mental health specialists, first responders, like law enforcement, 1,000,001 other things that they have to take care of, disputes, mediation, like any and one things, which is like realistically, that's too much for one person to have. Even in any regular job sector, like you don't give someone the operation stuff and then the management stuff and then the finance stuff like for all of them to do unless you're like a one-man band entrepreneur, in which case
we clap for you.
Yeah, like you were doing real well because like it's hard. But yeah, so I mean I can kind of like it only serves to also protect our police force, if anything, to actually defund. Do you know what I mean?
No, I hear what you're saying.
And obviously, like, and it's not even that what I'm saying is controversial, but it is just that it's like, it's at the end of the day, like, this is something that I personally think, which applies to whether it's law enforcement or armed forces or anything. I frankly, like, applaud the courage and the bravery to want to put yourself in that position, literally, technically, to protect, like, your country or, like, your community. But then at what point are you actually being a detriment to other communities while trying to keep that one that you've said that you were going to safeguard and protect, you know?
Well, that's the issue. And I think especially in US-based policing, they're built on systems which inherently tell you that certain people are prone to doing X and certain people are prone to doing Y. The system literally is designed to say, especially at the behest of Black people, that you are not worthy, you are more likely to be a danger or to be a threat, and it should always be eliminated. That's inherently problematic because it's proving the racist system that it's built upon. There's nobody that's saying when we say defund the police that there are not good people who are opting to actually want to do good for your community, which is exactly what you're saying. You're saying you recognize that there are people who opt into this position because they actually genuinely believe I can make change from within. But the problem with that is when the system is inherently flawed, you cannot break out of that system. You and I talked about this. I want to say in like episode 3 when we talked about Jim Crow must die. What did we say? 2 or 3 out of those police officers who were people of color said that they joined the police force because they wanted to be the change within their community. And what happened? George Floyd.
Literally.
Because they were listening to orders. And that's the whole issue. The rethinking of policing is nobody is saying that there doesn't need to be frameworks in which people operate. That there don't need to be morals and clauses that people need to abide by within society. I remember Trevor Noah said on his show, he was like, why would people abide by a contract that clearly is not benefiting them and has never benefited them? Why would you adhere to that? You're signing a check that's not being cashed. That doesn't make any sense. And so if we cannot have both sides upholding the deal, then we need to rethink what the deal looks like. And how it's done, because it's clearly killing people point blank. And I think the scary thing is, and you and I have talked about it, is this westernized form of policing, you know, the one that's built on fugitivism and capturing slaves that then became all of these other things in the United States of America, became all of these other things in the capital W West, got exported to places like Africa and the continent, across all of the countries. And now we're in a situation where globally we are seeing police forces and police brutality being enacted among people that look like each other. And that takes us to, we would be remiss if we're a global show. If we don't talk about the End SARS movement, we've done a disservice to ourselves and to the call that we claim, which is called Black Lives Matter. And the whole purpose, as you and I both know, of End SARS is to stop police brutality and corruption in Nigeria. These are special forces that are disappearing people, are brutalizing them, are killing them. And on October 20th, we saw them open fire on peaceful protesters.
Legit. Which is possibly one of the scariest things. Like, I don't go to necessarily like every protest, but I think like like you, I go to the ones where, and I mean, even with like my organization, Deducation, we do go for the sake of like showing our support and everything. But like, it is something that has crossed my mind every single time I'm there, is like, what if one day they just can't be bothered to put up with us in a peaceful and like civil way, and that's it, you know? And it is actually frightening. And even like what has happened in Nigeria, and like the reason why you can have a police force that disappears people and is inherently brutal as well, is literally because, and this is something that Sienna has said on the show, is that like,
shout out to our sis.
Hi, is that like the UK is like the big daddy exporter of racism, and also exporter of arms, which like are used in these like police brutality situations. So I've got some facts and stats.
Oh, you know I love a good fact and stat.
You know, because, and this is also coming from Campaign Against Arms Trade. If you haven't already checked it out, like, definitely do. Also,
Sienna
because,
already told you to do this.
Exactly. Also because they actually have like I think, it, to me anyway, like the clearest set of data and like the most, what's the word? Like inclusive, and there's just a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stats and facts and things. So, since 2015, there has been 43 million pounds worth of like export licenses granted from the UK to Nigeria. Essentially like 47 export licenses, 13 of which were for military helmets, 10 of which were for body armor, 9 of which were for components for body armor, because you can never have too much body armor. 2 of them were for hand grenades, 2 of them were for smoke canisters, aka like tear gas.
Lovely.
Because that's a great way to like...
Shout out to the U.S. for popularizing that in protest. We see.
But even in the U.S., the rubber bullets that they were using, there's reports, again, coming from Kat.
Thanks,
Kat. That, like, they were imported from the UK.
What do we say? We say this to every single show, and I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to let Melina finish. The UK is still hella racist. If you missed it, racism is not an American problem. It is a capital W West problem. And so learn it, read it, breathe it, bring it back, dismantle it.
Basically, we're going to put it on a shirt.
Merch coming soon.
But, so yeah, so 2 for smoke canisters. And this is like a selection that I took because obviously there's a lot in terms of like military aircrafts and stuff like that. But today we're talking about like policing.
People on the ground.
2 training hand grenades, which like 2 licenses for for like hand training.
Good.
Grenades, which I'm just like, all right. And then 1 license for anti-riot / ballistic shields. Because, yeah, what's more scarier than like people with, you know, who are unarmed and coming at you.
And coming at you with a cardboard sign. Crazy.
Yeah, and just shouting out slogans. And out of those 43 million pounds since 2015,
lovely,
1 million of them was for small arms. So it's like your kind of everyday like policing, handguns, whatnot. And 19 of them were for, military, like 19 million of them were for military vehicles, which again, like, does include kind of massive tanks that they can roll out.
Which they did use on the Lekki Bridge to block the entire bridge.
Exactly. Now, are we saying that the shots fired at people at Lekki Toll Bridge were made in the UK? I am not, because I am not trying to get us sued for libel or anything like that.
We didn't say it. We just said follow the facts.
I'm just saying all of the information is on cat.org.uk's website. That's all I have to say.
Run it back if you missed exactly what she said.
If you're trying to find, And the issue is that they've not also, this is something that the UK does a lot as well when it comes to kind of like their military / like defense type export things, is that they also export training. Consequently, what we saw happen at Lekki Toll Bridge, which is just heart-wrenching, which again, like...
30 people injured, at least 1 confirmed dead.
Yeah.
On the spot.
Which, exactly. Rest in peace to that man. Like, that is just, when you think about how all of this happened, it's not even that it's like learned behavior, but it's behavior that's been guaranteed to have effects and impacts. And therefore, that's what you're going to go for. Because, like, that is your most guaranteed return on investment in a certain way.
Yes. No, there is something to be said. I don't think you're wrong in saying there's a level of learned behavior, right? When people gained freedom, they didn't necessarily free themselves from a colonial mindset.
Yeah, true that.
And so these Western neo-colonial systems of policing, they started somewhere, right?
Yeah.
You inherited them.
Yeah.
You continued them. There's a strong line between those things. And you know what? In so many countries and contexts, we both know from the work that we do thinking about, how African countries get aid, or the WHO, how people get in debt, all of these things. We know that there is an ideology that says you have to be like the West in these democratic fashions and be doing X, Y, and Z to be able to get this money, to be able to be included in these things, to not have these bans or these tariffs and all these things. Well, let's be clear. We watched for 5 months throughout Black Lives Matter where there were peaceful protests on the side of the protesters. And what did we see on the other side? Tear gas, rubber bullets, police tanks, people shooting into crowds,
unmarked vehicles,
people being disappeared. We saw all of these things play out in a Western context, and that basically gave license to say, okay, well, it's fine. If they're willing to do that to their own people, there's no way they can come over here and tell me what to do to mine. Period. And that, honestly, I didn't just, draw that line because I was like, look at this. When President Buhari of Nigeria gave his press conference after the Lekki Toll Bridge shooting, he got on the microphone and said very similar rhetoric to people like President Trump, who said things like, we don't want to see any more protests. People need to go inside their houses. We want the police to restore law and order. Things of that nature, saying things like, we respect democracy, but if you're causing a nuisance or you're disturbing the peace of this country, then something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And the something is this. We're going to react. There was no accountability to say the military needs to stand down. There was no accountability to say, I'm sorry for the people that were injured, the people that were maimed, the person that was murdered. There was no acknowledgement. There was, however, talking at youth to say, get out of the streets.
Yeah.
That's learned behavior. Those set curfews on violent cities that are looting and rioting. We saw that attempted in Chicago. We saw that attempted in Portland. We saw that attempted in New York. We saw that attempted in Lagos. We're hearing about it being attempted in Abuja. Don't talk about, you didn't learn this. We sat here on TV in our homes for 6 months with people screaming Black Lives Matter, and this be the response from the government. Yeah. And unfortunately, we are watching a Black-run government do the same thing to Black people.
Yeah.
Just because you are no longer colonized does not mean you've liberated yourself from the mindset of the colonizer. It's that simple.
That is a very hard fact, which I think people never seem to understand either. Like, you've brought kind of that expression into my life, which didn't really exist before. But you've influenced me. Not all skin folk are kinfolk. It is exactly that. And sometimes it is just kind of like, obviously that brings about questions of allyship and stuff like that. And frankly, I'm not sure that we have the time today. But
I don't know if that was slated for today.
But at the end of the day, we are literally I see us all as cousins, realistically, because that's just how it is. Because our continent was divided up and borders were drawn in places that borders should have never existed.
Amen.
And thus families were ripped apart. With that being said, it is just madness to think also just about how much, I think we were discussing this yesterday. It was kind of it's almost like people wanted this outcry as well for NSARS to be huge. And it's yeah, of course. And it is, and it has become, and you've got a ton of celebrities that have gotten involved in this is an actual thing that's known about and spoken about and everything. But it is the question of would it have been better if you had now people in the US that just kind of stopped their efforts in the US and went end SARS? Obviously in London in London and across the UK anyway, because there is a huge Nigerian diaspora. There were a number of protests held in solidarity and obviously to say this needs to stop happening. But then the question then becomes obviously all of our struggles, whether it's like in Nigeria, whether it's here, whether it's in the US, whether it's in France, whether it's in Congo, whether it's in Namibia, whether it's in Ivory Coast, whether it's in Cameroon.
Oh, South Africa.
And it's in South Africa. It sucks to be speaking so much about everything, but like, yeah, like it.
Liberia. We can keep going.
Unfortunately, the list never ends, but at what point do we, should we just all actually band together? Mm-hmm. Or should we go topic by topic and then use, you know what I mean? If you have a successful campaign, then you use that momentum to go into something else. It is just a question. It's, ideally, I would probably support that we just have like a total unified movement, but that's complicated to organize.
Incredibly complicated.
So I don't know, what's your opinion on all of this? Because obviously, solidarity, yes, 100% there. But you know what made me, it kind of made me laugh, but obviously not in a comical way.
Obviously.
But when you've had the posts now, that have been going around, social media and stuff for the last week or so, of campaign in Nigeria is this, campaign in Congo is this, campaign in this. And I'm like, the Congolese thing has been happening for the better part of 25 to 30 years.
Since an iPhone.
So, yeah. So I'm like, even way before. It never, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm glad that everyone gets awoken every 4 years with oh my gosh, the situation in Congo is horrible. But I'm like, we know this. We keep talking about this. This is happening. But at the end of the day, something else always happens, which then takes the attention away, or people get bored, or whatnot. But, at what point are we actually better off all banding together, or is it... Thoughts?
No, I think you're raising a really interesting and important point by acknowledging all of these things are happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are not new. But also, even within SARS police force started in 1992. It's not a new thing. It didn't pop up yesterday.
Yeah.
Right? Police brutality in the United States of America didn't pop up with the George Floyd murder.
No, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
These are not new topics. And I think Wale actually said this. Shout out to him. We share a house. It's fine.
He's a cool guy. I'm not gonna lie. He's pretty sick.
But he said this on our last episode. He said we're ripe for liberation and revolution in this moment because people are ready to band together to move forward.
Yeah.
And I'm of a very similar ilk, right? Black Lives Matter, the organization, was started in, I believe, 2012 in response to the murder of Trayvon Martin. And that may have been the start of the organization, but the calls to action for people to campaign for Black lives and the movement that has since happened, you've seen exactly what you said, ebbs and flows. It was real hot when Trayvon Martin was going on. Then we got cool. Then we got Philando Castile. Then we got cool. Then we got Eric Garner. Then we got cool. Somewhere in there we had Chandra Bland. And we could honestly keep running these names. And the reason I think that right now in this moment, you're seeing such a global push for Black Lives Matter to truly mean all Black Lives Matter is that people can turn their attention undivided. People can genuinely look at this issue and say, this is more than just these series of moments that have occurred. This is genuinely trend and trajectory of things that have been happening to Black people
there's a
for
pattern.
centuries. We have a pattern and we can draw it for you.
Yeah.
And so I think it is the moment for the global community to, as Black people of the diaspora, to engage with one another, right? If you see that things are working in some place, get in there, learn about it, realize how you can adapt it to wherever you might be. Because there is always going to be strength in number.
Yeah.
What did Sienna say 2 episodes ago? We are global majority peoples.
Yeah.
These systems may have been created by white people. They may have been, continue to be processed and entrenched by systems of white supremacy. But we are not minorities. We may be minorities in these spaces in the West, but we are not minorities. Even the people with colonial mindsets on the African continent, they are the minority versus people who are actually thinking and moving forward.
Yeah.
And so I think it really is our job, especially as you and I sit here and, we never claim to be, yes, we both do activist work. yes, we both are all about the advancement of Black people. Well, we do not claim to be the singular voice on these issues.
Oh.
And we do not...
Please don't take us as the singular voice for these issues.
And we are not remiss. The main reason that we have this show and the reason that we bring the guests on that we bring on each week is because we realize that all of these different places have very different issues. They may have the same underlying theme of that Black people are being oppressed, but we need to know how everybody is having these conversations. We need to know how everybody is fighting these issues because we need each other to move forward. And I think the reason that you're seeing such a call to action from the continent to the U.S. or from the U.S. to the continent or from the U.K. to wherever, although we will admit sometimes the UK is a little bit behind the 8 ball, but we're not going to have that conversation. The reason that we're seeing these calls to action in this particular moment, in my opinion, is the thing that's happening in 7 days. It's the U.S. election. Yeah. We really saw this 4 years ago.
Yeah, legit.
We saw white supremacy take a big front center stage seat for the world. And then we watched as countries like the UK then followed on trend. Countries like Brazil followed on trend. Hell, Trump called Nigeria a shithole country and tried to ban everyone, and Buhari sent him a get well message when he had COVID on Twitter. Anywho, we don't leave that alone. I'm not going to touch that. I would like to be able to go to Nigeria one day. I ain't trying to get banned. We'll leave it alone. But
point is, he sent out a tweet and it,
you got the point.
That's,
But all of those things being said, we saw white supremacy, despite Trump saying at the debate he's the least racist person in the room to the Black woman that he was talking to.
I think that just goes to prove that he is a comedian at the end of the day. Like, clearly the man is multi-talented in that he's got Twitter trigger fingers and he's clearly a stand-up comic.
He said, full flush face to the Black woman moderating the debate. I am the least racist person in this room.
I think I have great relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room.
What?
But that is genuinely an ideology.
Yeah, I can't. It just blows my mind.
That's genuinely a thought process. And I think we've said it on the show, and I'm going to say it again. It is no longer enough just not to be racist.
Yeah.
We are actively looking for anti-racism and active allyship.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of this harkens back to exactly what you and I talked about. The reason that we need to be in conversation with people across the diaspora is because, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, the tides will turn in the direction of the capital W West. And at this moment, the tide is going to turn depending on what happens in the U.S. election.
I'm terrified, but that's fine.
Well, all I can think about is yesterday, you and I on our first meeting, just trying to drink some wine, decompress, because we're both stressed. Trying to watch some American football, even though the Bears couldn't seem to get it together.
It's really unfortunate, but yeah.
And all we saw multiple times on the commercial break from Sky News was their America Decides.
I'm shook. I genuinely have never, you know what it just kind of felt like, it felt like one of those ads that is, it's like do you remember back in the day with the anti-piracy ads, and it was like, you wouldn't steal a car, you wouldn't steal a TV, and then now it's like, you wouldn't go looting. It's like,
you learn how to stop a wildfire.
And it's like, but sir, I actually didn't do any of these things. It's not, and then it just felt every time it played, it was like this somber moment of reality of America decides, the world is either going to hell or it's going to somewhat thrive.
Genuinely.
We're not sure. And neither am I at this point. I don't know.
For people who are never going to be able to witness this, if we can find it, we will clip it for you.
Oh my God.
But I don't know if we'll be able to find it in an internet context. But for people who haven't witnessed this, i.e. like our U.S. listeners or even our UK listeners who aren't out here having to download Now TV to watch American football, this commercial that consistently airs on all Sky programming starts with very somber music, like back drums fading in.
Like, you don't notice it starts until you notice it.
And then you look up at your screen, and all you see are images from the U.S. protests.
Yeah.
You see images of
The
police
wildfires.
and ICE. And then, as she just said, it's like a nice little transition to the wildfires of California
Yeah.
and the West. And then a lovely little transition
Yeah.
to people in masks talking about the COVID-19 pandemic. And then you hear some more somber music, and the guy in the background is going, America is at a crossroads. They decide. Boom, like we're watching fucking Law and Order. And it's showing that on November 3rd,
Bruh.
they're going to show programming on the U.S. election. But their whole understanding of the U.S. election is that there were these Black Lives Matter people that did all this ruckus. There were some wildfires that nobody could stop. And there's a pandemic where the U.S. is leading the way in the death toll.
It didn't. I think if you hadn't kind of like, not saying that you posed a bias in my mind, but like
I did. That's
initially, I like watched it and I was like, okay, do you know what? Maybe this is their way of showing support. That like you've got people literally on the streets every day that are fighting something.
Okay.
And therefore they're saying like, yo, America's in a place right now where there's a lot happening. Have some compassion for them. America decides. Or right? But then the more when
we
you
watched
see
it 3 times over.
when you see it for the 8th time in the space of like 2 hours, you're also just kind of there like, this is like a horror movie that they're trying to say like, don't be that guy. Like,
Don't be them.
don't be them. Like, avoid your wildfires. Wear your like. It just kind of.
Which
do you
is
know
a
what I
little
mean?
hypocritical.
But then it also, I don't know. There was like no clear message. So it's like someone that has
That's so
someone
true.
that's like us, right? Who is like, I don't know. You know how minded we are. Like, we'd see it and we would potentially think that first thing of like, oh, is this like a show
Yes.
of like compassion, solidarity, blah, blah, blah. But then if you have someone who's like, I don't know, from the middle of nowhere, like Yorkshire,
Right.
and who doesn't like know enough about these issues and only just kind of knows that it's like whiny snowflakes that like never
Yeah.
get their way and blah, blah, blah. And why do black people have to scream about their rights all the time when like they're the most free or whatnot?
Whatever.
That can serve to them as even more justification of being like, God, yeah, he needs to stay in power to put some order back up in there, because like, look at how crazy it's going, like blah blah blah. And so that's the danger, I think, in all of that, is that, and that's kind of something that like, I'm not saying that I hold against UK media, because again, like one day I would potentially like to work on UK media, but
she
like
thinks and says was questioning eyes.
I said potentially, maybe one day. Like there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts. But it's horrible. But yeah, it just kind of, for me, like that's how I've always kind of seen British media, in that there is no actual like, you know, we're gonna plant both feet in the ground and this is our position when it comes to like world affairs. I'm not gonna comment on like their positions and stuff with like in country stuff, because I don't know, I'm not British, so
Yes,
I'm not
it's
trying
not
to
my
like,
conversation. I haven't been here long enough to really delve into that.
I'm not trying to
thing.
like, but when it comes to like outside things, it does kind of seem as if it's always just, you know, we're gonna take a position that covers all grounds, and then that way, no matter what the outcome is, we kind of have a space in that conversation to exist, which is a strategy. Like,
It is a strategy.
I guess
did colonize most of the world, so clearly at some point it was working. We didn't forget. Main exporters of colonization, imperialism, and racism. We know.
Oh, Lord Jesus. But yeah, I just, that was nuts to watch.
So did that
constantly.
did that make you, when we were sitting here trying to have a chill evening, did that make you more nervous for 8 days from now, or did that make you more angry, or just you were already in a space where you were stressed and you're just this is where I'm at?
I think every day I've gotten more stressed.
Okay.
It's not even genuinely, literally genuinely, because like I'm just trying to think of like, all right, like whatever happens, do you know what I mean? Like whatever happens, there's going to be hell raised. Yeah, 100%. No matter what, which is the terrifying part in all of this, is that like even if, oh my God, please Jesus allow for this to happen, but if Biden passes,
amen.
I mean, like what? The NRA's gonna come out in it and like just have a show of force or something.
Trump said, "Proud Boys, stand back and stand down." He did not say.
No, he said stand by.
He said stand by. You're right. He said stand back and stand by.
He didn't say stand down.
Yeah, right. That was the issue. He didn't say stand down. Also, I'm gonna refer to the Proud Boys as the Po Boys from now on, as Joe Biden did in the U.S. presidential debate. They are now a sandwich to me.
You exist in bread.
So
like, bye. No, I yeah, po boys. I don't know. I'm very nervous. Like I mean, obviously I am of course going to vote, but like I still have my ballot because I'm just there like I'm terrified
you have to mail that in. We live in a foreign country.
I'm faxing it.
There we go.
Yeah. Oh, I chose the faxing option
smart.
ASAP. Yeah, because I was like, you know what? We're gonna use them old school techniques where they finna get that right then and there. Ain't gotta wait for nothing. Like,
True. I support you.
Because I don't trust. So I don't know. How are you feeling? Yeah, same.
How am I feeling? Deep breaths.
Deep breaths.
I am cautiously optimistic, which I'm afraid to say on a program that is going to be aired for a long time now and forever. But I am cautiously optimistic.
Okay.
Now, my cautious optimism comes because based on early voting, we're already seeing that there are more people that have voted early than people that voted in the entire 2016 election.
Well, that's a blessing.
Praise. I am also cautiously optimistic because black voting in the 2016 election was dismal. Like,
yeah.
Especially comparatively to 2008 and 2012. Shout out to Barack. We miss you. We love you. But this go round, there has been a very conscientious effort by things like the Black Church and Black Lives Matter, who's actually a great organization, and other organizations within the Black community to make sure that people are registered to vote. People are being driven to their polling places. People know how to vote absentee or vote via mail.
Yeah.
You know, people are willing to stand in these lines. I'm talking get there at 6 a.m., leave at 5 p.m. because it's important. And that does give me a level of cautious optimism because this level of fervor is not something that we saw in the last election. Now, the cautious part of that.
Yeah. Because we were gung-ho optimistic 4 years ago.
The cautious part of that is I lived through 2016.
Yeah.
I existed through the space. And it was incredibly traumatic.
Yeah.
I'm cautious about that because I recognize what I see is incredibly left-leaning.
Yeah.
Is incredibly Black conscious. And it is steeped in things where I would expect people to be doing exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I recognize that, and I recognize that my bubble doesn't necessarily reflect the entire United States of America. And so that's where my caution comes. My caution also comes because we just, added Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. And Clarence Thomas, who, if white people would like to pick him up, they can have him. We confirmed her. Yeah. And that to me, and it was voted down party lines. A singular Republican voted against her. A singular one. Yeah. And I'm not even going to give that woman a whole lot of credit because in all honesty, she just thinks she's going to lose the race. So she tried to do something.
She's up for re-election in Maine. If you just want to know. That's...
Yeah, go read about her.
That's the situation.
So...
No, I think that's so... I mean, do you... Because I think I've debated this, well, not debated, but I've discussed this topic with, some people and stuff. And it's, is it really that undemocratic for them to have nominated and confirmed someone like literally a week before an election that is also literally the biggest election that's about to happen.
Well, I don't know. When you stalled Obama's nomination from Scalia for 236 some odd days, heck yes.
There we go.
You committedly said, we're not letting Obama get any more court nominations. You blocked every single one at every turn. But no, you guys got sub 3 months, and you said, I'm going to push this through. Let's just stop, and let's stop the book at Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Justice Ginsburg, on her deathbed, said it is my only wish that they do not replace my seat until after the American people have voted.
Yeah.
So that's you couldn't even respect somebody's death wish?
Listen, that's some bad karma juju. Like, you finna get haunted. Like, you went against someone's dying wish. Like, that's dead ass how they start scary movies. It's like like ghost movies. Is that you got somebody that goes, nah, I'm gonna not do that. And then all of a sudden, you got someone peeping in your mirror when you're out here brushing your teeth. Yeah.
You
scaring the daylights out of you. Facts. Scaring the daylight. Flies land. She said, no, I'm done. I'm dead. Good night. Goodbye.
Cut it.
Yeah. JKs. But yeah, no, it's absolutely mad. And like, I think what killed me actually, and this is, I pulled this up on my phone earlier because I wanted to make sure that like I had it. So there's a screenshot going around that was from MSNBC last night. Okay. And this is her experience. So this is again, like.
Who we just put in our Supreme Court for a
Amy
lifetime
Coney
nomination?
Barrett. Her experience is 2 years in private practice, never tried a case, never argued an appeal, never argued before the Supreme Court, most private work involved civil cases, not criminal cases, 15 years teaching experience, which I guess that's nice.
Continue reading.
And never served as a judge until 2017. So, and apparently they got all this information from otherjones.com. Again, I'm taking away the accountability for this information from us, but my point being is that it's all wonderful that, like, you know, she's got teaching experience and all of that. And, like, honestly,
well, she couldn't back up in her confirmation.
All I think is that it's like, why are we trying to put us literally aside from just basically overturning, like, monumental cases and like, laws that have been passed, like, through the Supreme Court.
Yes.
There's no other reason other than for that to nominate someone like that to a lifetime seat. Like, how are you going to expect someone's experience to be coming from when they actually hold the seat in the Supreme Court? Am I saying that we only need to nominate people who are 70? No.
No, that's also not the way.
That's not the point. The point is to nominate people who are qualified to do this and can actually handle the load of what comes with that. Because, like, obviously, you know, what's his name? Brett Kavanaugh. The man was grilled for, like, weeks on end. And, like, maybe, you know what I mean? Obviously, there's a whole lot of reasons as to why he was grilled. But the point being is that, like, I don't know that he was necessarily ready for that much of an inspection into his life. I don't know that he was, like, ready to be under such a microscope. Is she ready to be a justice? What do you call him? Yeah, a Supreme Court, a justice. Left, Supreme Court judge in it. And, like, is she ready for all of the responsibilities that come with that? And, like, for the fact that, you know, there's a lot of, like, talk that she might be the one to actually reverse Roe v. Wade, which is what gave women the right for, like, abortions, essentially. Free and safe abortions. And she might be the one to reverse that. Can you really live with, as a woman, can you, like...
Yes, Melina,
sit there in your... Blows my mind.
Yes, she can.
It just blows my mind. Like, your religious beliefs, whatever, but, like, I just don't understand how, like, people can see that they create pain in others, visible pain, like how they shot Walter Wallace Jr. in front of his mother. How you can create such visible pain and not feel any type of way about it to actually make the... Like, how do you not make the vow to not actively not be the source of that pain anymore?
This is the thing.
Like, I'm not even saying that they're sadistic or anything, but, like, is there enjoyment to it? Like, is there some sort of, like, gratification that comes from it? Are we missing something that, like, we're not seeing in systematic oppression and, like...
Well, clearly you're not going to understand systematic oppression. We are oppressed peoples.
Yeah, good point.
This is my... No, but I hear you. I hear that...
I'm just shocked. Like,
to me,
maybe I'm naive. I don't know, but...
That might be it.
Yeah.
But, like, I respect that because, you know what? We all need a little bit of optimism.
Thanks.
No, I definitely need somebody in my life that's optimistic. So thank you for existing. No, but she means she's the Betsy DeVos of the Supreme Court. Like, you are literally somebody who your qualifications are subpar. And you were really put in this position based on your religious and political
stances.
beliefs. And this is the thing. The main reason the main reason those other folk even push this stuff through is because Trump's only aim has been to dismantle the ACA, the Affordable Care Act. And he has not even come close in 4 years. Yeah. But if it goes to the Supreme Court and they're all on his side,
then they're going to go for it.
Very easy to dismantle the ACA. Roe v. Wade, the same thing.
Yeah.
Haven't been able to do anything on it.
Yeah.
Your court's packed on your side. Very easy to do that. All of these, the separation, and you know me, I am a church-going human being. Like, that is who I am. But the separation of church and state is dismal in this here administration. It is non-existent.
Yeah.
The clauses of morality are the things that are continually on trial that have nothing to do with governing a state.
Yeah.
And that is how we've been able to get into these situations. That's why Ted Cruz feels so emboldened to, be sweating a mess talking about I really support you and all your adopted kids in a confirmation hearing. I can't. That confirmation hearing gave me a level of anxiety that I don't feel like discussing on this program. Shout out to Netta, who was on episodes 4 and 5, for making me watch that. I'm running it back to you now.
She said, thank you for the experience.
Thank you, ma'am. I needed that with my night the other day.
Oh.
But all of these things are happening. Just to bring it back, because I think we're going to have to let our viewers go soon. All of these things are happening. And it's so interesting to be sitting here with you 8 days away from the U.S. election. So much of what you and I have talked about for the past 10 episodes is the ways in which people can support Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
The ways in which people can be anti-racist. The ways in which people can work to dismantle systems of oppression. We've witnessed the deaths of a myriad of people who didn't deserve to die.
Yeah.
And were crudely murdered by systems that were not designed for them. And we're not just talking about people that were taken at the hands of the police. I'm talking about the disproportionate number of Black and brown people that have died at the hands of COVID-19. I'm talking about the lives and the jobs that were lost.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the food deserts that were never created, the businesses that were never be back built because people were protesting and screaming in the streets.
Yeah.
All of those things. And we lost great figures like Chadwick Boseman or John Lewis or Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And they all reminded us that we have to get in good trouble. And the best thing that we could do is vote. That voting time is finally here. It's been here for a few weeks, depending on where you've been. But the moment is now. And we are about to live through probably the biggest election in our lifetime this far.
Yeah.
And it's not just a moment for the U.S. It's a moment for the globe to say we're not going to stand for this.
Yeah.
We're not going to stand for these systems of oppression. We're not going to stand for this fascism, this racism, any of this. We want better. And I think you and I are both nervous and cautious.
Yeah.
And scared. But I am also resilient and resolute in the fact that there are 400 years worth of people, 400 plus years worth of people who came before me, who lived through adversarial times.
Yeah.
And they continue to be strong.
Yeah.
And continue to thrive. And no matter what happens in 8 days, we will do the exact same thing. We will put our hearts and prayers and thoughts up to the best thing happening. We still voting for that Black woman that's trying to go to the White House.
Yeah, but I'm definitely taking Wednesday off.
Yeah, no, shout out to Mari will be home and please don't call me. Either way it goes, because we'll be tired. It will also be an election week episode and Melina and I will either be in tears or extremely giddy. Take your pick. You don't know, but it will be a good word and it's not one that you want to miss. We're super excited.
Yeah.
We're going to end you on a happy note this week because that's how we feel.
Yeah.
But to be sitting in front of my good
I
sis is
know.
the best thing that's happened to me in the past couple of months. I'm
Oh,
ecstatic and loving, and it's great. But thank you all for continuing to come to this party. And as always, always, thank you so much for coming to Got Melanin.
Everybody gather round and listen to my song.